Well, as usual, I'm running a little bit behind on my updates for the hunt. So this muzzleloader season, I was going to put out a little bit more videos, and I might still do that. But muzzleloader day 1 through 5, I saw quite a few deer. I saw quite a few deer on every single hunt. And 3 out of the 5 days, I was actually up closer to bedding areas, which is something I normally don't do during the late muzzleloader. Late muzzleloader hunting for me is back off, hunting over a standing corner soybean plot from a blind or something like that. But it's been really warm, and the deer are really spread out. They're really, really spread out. A lot of food is still available, so I thought if I got closer to bedding, that would narrow that down as the deer left their bedding area. So I had 3 sits close to bedding, 2 sits overlooking food, and I saw deer every time. I didn't get a lot of good footage because it's been so quiet. There's been just really no wind this last week that when I was on stand, even if I had deer coming in and stuff, I was really reluctant to grab the camera and start doing some filming. But I do have some highlights, and so we'll get to those. And then some bucks that I was watching all fall, they made it back. They're starting to show back up now on cameras. I put some batteries in some of my cameras here. Now that the shotgun seasons were over, so I'm checking those and I'm starting to get some pictures. And I had a cell phone camera close to the house here that the batteries were dead, or at least it's showing the batteries were dead. And when I put in 4 new batteries, it did like 160 photo dump. So it must have been taking pictures but didn't have enough battery life to send me those pictures. And on that camera we got Joe and Pickett, and I'll have to go back and put those in the video. But a lot of the bucks that we were watching made it through the shotgun season, so they should either be around next year or hopefully Ira Lily will get them. So here's the footage for the first 5 days. Day 6 I didn't get to go hunting because I was doing a consultation, which normally I don't do during hunting season, but this one was an hour away. So yesterday that was an all-day consultation on a farm. And now we'll see what happens today. They're talking a lot of rain in the forecast after we've been, going through this really bad drought. Hopefully I can get out tonight and keep hunting, but they're talking about a lot of rain. So here's the footage, the little I do have of day 1 through 5, 2023 muzzleloader hunt. Well, I just got settled in. I'm in a homemade box blind here on the cabin farm. I think this box blind has killed at least a half a dozen big mature bucks over the years between Forrest and Lily. And what I got is the entrance is really good. I come in from the east through some really tall, it's either big or little blue stem, part of a CRP mix. So it gives me really good screening. This blind is only about 6 feet off the ground, so it gives me really good exit when I leave. As long as there's deer not like right on top of me, I can usually sneak out the back at dark or let it get really dark, kind of crouch down, and I can get out with those grasses blocking my view. We've got a strong northwest wind today. Today's probably one of the coldest days we've had, so I'm hoping that puts these deer out here at the cabin farm on corn and soybeans. So the corn was standing as of yesterday, and I came in with the tractor and I knocked it down. So when I'm done giving this little interview, I'll put the camera out and you'll see that the beans are still standing, and I've alternated beans, corn, 15 feet of beans, 15 feet of corn. And I really think it turned out pretty good this year. The beans are probably 3 feet high. They're full of pods. The corn was phenomenal. I had them electric fenced in. I got about 1.5 acres here. I call it the 2-acre plot, but it's about 1.5 acres. I had them electric fenced in until yesterday. And over there I have the boot food plot. It's about 1.5 acres, and those were unfenced probably end of September. I brought the fence down, took the electric fence charger off for Mike and Joel, who were hunting this farm during the bow season. So no one's been on this farm for probably a month. We did a couple observation sits. Amy and I and Forrest and Jessica early November-ish, mid-November, when they were down, when Amy got her buck during archery season. So no one's been out here. I haven't checked cameras. I haven't really done any kind of human intrusion on this farm for whatever that would be, maybe 5 weeks. So it should set up here really good for a late muzzleloader hunt. Tonight's hunt is really a scouting mission for Lily, with the exception of one buck that I know of. Well, two exceptions. The second exception would be a big mature buck comes in that I've never seen before, came in for the soybeans and corn, I'd take him. The second would be this really big 10-pointer that I filmed last year coming out of some switchgrass back here, or I should say little and big blue stem. And he came out and fed on the boot food plot. So if he shows up, if I get a good look at him and I want him, I'll take him. But I do want to, I'll film the rest of the hunt tonight, and then whatever I see, I'll try and put on YouTube right away as a first day update. But I do want to talk about, I really like soybeans and corn as a destination food plot for late season hunting. And I want my farm to peak with its habitat. So that's both the natural habitat, woody browse, the timber areas, the draws, and my food plots. I want them to peak in November and December and January, because that's when the most pressure gets put on in the area. A lot of shotgun hunting in the area. That's when the majority of the bucks that are going to get killed, that are bucks that I would normally pass. So that's when I want my farm to peak. So I put in green food plots that'll peak in November and December, but when those green food plots start taking some heavy frosts, that's when these corn and soybeans really start to pay off. And I do both corn and soybeans because I've seen deer walk through standing soybeans and go to corn. I've seen deer walk through corn that I've knocked down and go right to beans. And I could guess as to the reason why they prefer corn one day and beans the next day, but I've seen them prefer both. I've seen deer walk through standing soybeans that I've had out, leave, hardly even nibble on the standing soybeans, and go out to cut corn behind me. So now what I do is I do beans and corn, just because I want to make sure I have both available to them. I electric fence in one food plot and just release it so that I make sure that I got standing grains for late muzzleloader, for late season, to attract, hold, and protect bucks. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to take the camera now and I'll pan. I'll show you these two food plots, and then I'm just going to settle in. I got about 2 hours before quitting time, and we'll see if a big one comes out tonight. So right there's where I drove over the corn, standing soybeans, more corn. It's kind of hard to see from the blind, but you can see it's kind of corn and beans and corn and beans. That's the plot. And then way over to this side, same thing, standing beans, standing corn. So I can tell this is going to be an issue. If they're in the beans, I'm not going to be able to shoot. Those beans are so tall. And a really good soybean food plot back in there. So my shot's going to be in those lanes. There's another one of corn that I drove down. I'm just not going to be able to get a shot off in those beans. Not in this field anyways. So at this point, I have about 17 minutes left of legal shooting, and I got 4 bucks out on this side. It's my south side. And there's a handful of does and fawns on this side, and the wind is starting to lay down. So we'll see what comes out. I'm not even going to try filming them does. They're in the beans, and they're just, all I can see is the heads. So Day 2, making a pretty aggressive move tonight. We got a south wind, a strong south wind, so it allowed me to get in close to a bedding area where I think Kaminsky might be. I'm probably a half a mile from the corn that's behind our house, where Amy's archery blind is. But on the way in, I think I bumped a doe and a fawn, which is not good. But like I said, it's an aggressive move tonight, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully we'll still see some deer coming through here. So this is actually day 3 now, and I didn't dare give an interview in here. It was so quiet. But I snuck back in close to this same bedding area that I was the night before, but now I'm in a different stand. I'm hoping to pick up Kaminsky. I had a couple encounters with Worm and Joe in this stand during bow season. So now this is day 4 behind the house, and I'm set up pretty much a bed to feed pattern, but this is more of a bow hunting spot. So I'm hoping they're going to come through off to my left here. You can see some trails. There's a ditch crossing down in there. Trails get hit pretty hard. I got a water hole that I made this summer back in there. There's a ladder stand that we bow hunt in, and that's the corn. So I'm actually pretty close to destination food right now. And I'm expecting a shooter buck, if he comes, to come out of that pocket of bedding cover and then come my way. So we'll see what happens. I've seen this play out before in this spot, so we'll see what happens. So I promise this isn't staged. You'll have to take me for my word. But I've seen this play out so many times, that little pocket of bedding cover that I filmed in that last little bit there. I think these bucks are actually not necessarily bedded there, but they stage up there. And more toward quitting time, I look up and here comes this big buck out of there. It's the first deer I saw come out of that pocket. in this evening, and it's worm. Well, he's a nice. That's a hell of a buck. But I have no intentions on shooting him here. With Lily coming into camp, and just hope he doesn't bust me at this point. And he's run down, and he looks healthy, but boy, did he lose the weight. A couple times I saw him during archery season, and he's lost a lot of weight. He's slimmed down quite a bit, but he's like on a rope coming to this standing corn, which from my view right now is it's pretty much behind me. So there's other deer around. So to my left, where he's looking right now, there's other deer, and they're like, moving around and kind of spooked, and there's squirrels moving around and stuff like that. But he's headed to that cornfield. I don't know. These big bucks sometimes do this, but he just kind of hung up. I think there's a scrape in there, and he just hung up, and I think he stood there for about 15 minutes. So I cut some of that video out, turned, and just watched. And then here he comes again. So that's about 15 minutes I cut out. Maybe not, maybe 10 minutes. And here he comes again. So I want to guess he's 50 yards, probably 70 yards away, 70 to 80 yards away right now. And I got to be so careful about how I move because there's other deer around that you can't see. But boy, is he run down. To me, it looks like he lost about 30 or 40 pounds. But with the mild winter so far and some standing corn and standing beans, hopefully he'll be okay. So he's browsing right now on any beans that are left over. So he'll be a hell of a buck next year if Lily doesn't take him in the next couple weeks when she shows up in camp. So at this point, he's not following the script. He's supposed to be coming in to my left, but I think there's a doe and a fawn like down to my right, and I think he probably saw that little bit of movement, so that's where he's headed right now. And eventually, if he keeps going the way he's going, it's going to get downwind of me. I do the best I possibly can with scent control, but these deer get downwind of you this time of year. It's pretty tough. But if you've been following along, though, you remember some of the clips when I passed this buck up earlier in the year? Look at he's nudging that doe. End of December, and he's still willing to be a little frisky if he has to be. But his neck is skinnier, and he's lost some weight. I mean, he looks like a 3-year-old buck there. So he hangs up in that area with those does and fawns, and eventually it just gets dark on me. They just stay there till dark. I shut the camera off, then eventually they go off. I got down from my stand a good, half hour to 40 minutes after dark for this hunt. And then eventually went back to my left and headed to that corn. So this is day 5 now. Again, up close to bedding. Really foggy, warm, got some rain the night before, and I saw just a boatload of deer on this night, day 5. A lot of does and fawns and quite a few small bucks, and I just didn't get much footage because I was afraid to breathe heavy. That's how quiet it was in here. Um, but it was like this all night. 2 or 3 does coming through. A little while later, 2 or 3 does coming through, and they're all headed toward destination food. They're really piling in to cut corn, is what I found. But I'm tucked in close to bedding here to try and cut them off. So, like I said, some bucks made it through for sure. At least the shotgun season. Here's Worm and another big mature buck. Not a very big rack, but another big mature buck. And Joe showed up behind the house, so he made it through. Got some pictures of him. He's looking pretty good. These deer lost a lot of weight, but they look pretty healthy. And here's Kaminsky on that camera that I powered up and had that big download, that big dump. He showed back up. So